So a friend of mine reached out and said, "Hey, you should talk about a quarter life crisis." And I was like, "What is this nonsense?
Yeah, what
quarter
the
life
fuck is
crisis?"
that?
Let me tell you about this guy.
I'll tell you about this fucker right here.
Yeah. and she said that it was like a Gen Z thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, all right, Gen Z's quarter life crisis. Gen Z likes to make crap up. So, okay, let's roll with this.
Mm-hmm.
So I did some research.
And to be fair, like when you told me about it earlier, I was also like, is that just some like term that we invented like out of nowhere? Because it's not something I've ever heard before. I've obviously heard of midlife crisis, never heard of quarter life crisis.
Yeah, I think it's just envy. Oh, he's going through a midlife crisis and I don't get anything, so I'm going to invent my quarter life crisis. Mm-hmm. But I did the research. All right, I think the quarter life crisis is more of a new name for something that's been going on since the dawn of man.
Yeah.
All right. So during the research, so we'll piece this together piece by piece, and I got my notes here so I could remember what to make fun of. So it says here that it's a transition from mid to late 20s and early 30s is when the quarter life crisis starts.
Okay.
All right. Which brings me, the first question is, how long do you freaking planning on living if it starts in your mid 20s?
I'm going to 100, Mike. I don't know what to tell you. 20 going on 100.
Gen Z, from my understanding, they are the ones that are like, can't this life be over already?
Yeah.
But they're going to plan for like 120.
That's our burden to bear, right? We want to die, but the irony is that we're going to live the longest. Well, and I think from what I looked at, it kind of sounded like this term was not coined by Gen Z in particular. It sounds like it is a researched term, which Gen Z is probably not doing the research on. They're the ones being experimented on to come up with this term, but not necessarily coming up with the term.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, 20 to 30 as a quarter life crisis is a little optimistic on the age side of things.
Yeah.
Especially if you're an American. That on average, the American male, I think, only lives to 75 or 80 or something like that. It's somewhere around there.
Yeah, we're still dying before the women.
Yeah.
We die before our wives because we want to.
Yeah, so definitely a little optimistic, but I think a lot of people associate a midlife crisis too with like 50. At least I did, but that's also optimistic, right?
Yeah, I know. I had my midlife crisis, and it was right around the 40-year-old mark. I have to admit though, when I was younger, I was thinking, and younger being in my 20s, I was like, I've known what I've done with this body and my life. I'll probably live to 63 tops. I mean, because I don't even have a desire to make 64. I just want the irony of dying just as I'm eligible to get my Social Security benefits.
Yeah, that's when they start poisoning your food and just kick you off as fast as possible.
But now they're upping the age for that. So now it's like 67 I have to live to.
Yeah.
So
yeah, by the time I get there, I'll have to be 72.
No, by the time you get there, I'll be like, sorry, we ran out.
Yeah, we ran out. We don't have any more. What about all that I paid into it?
You'd be renamed the Go Fuck Yourself generation.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So to get to the quarter life crisis, right? What the quarter life crisis is you're going through this stage of trying to figure out your life while also not being satisfied with your life. So there's like, you did the college thing, or you're in college and just trying to figure out your career. And is it matching up? Is it enjoyable? That type of thing. But also there's people that are in their career or in their job, but they're not in their career. And so they're not happy and content. They don't view that their plans are coming to fruition and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then you get, if you went to college or like a university, you kind of get mixed in, right? You have a lot of these other people around you that come from all different backgrounds, all different socioeconomic classes. You've got the really rich kids, poor kids, things like that. And then you've got kids that have jobs, don't have jobs, the ones that have had internships don't. And so you kind of get thrown into this like, oh no, am I behind? Am I ahead? Am I doing something wrong? Like,
and comparison is the thief of joy.
Right.
But it's like, it's a whole bunch of things. Just like Jack, you're like, am I on my purpose? Do I know my purpose?
Yeah.
Am I still trying to find? Why are these people know what their purpose is, and I'm still lost over here trying to find my purpose? And then I have relationships. I'm 26 years old. These people are getting married. I don't even have a boyfriend. I don't even have a girlfriend. They're having kids. I'm like this weird Uncle Bob now.
I don't know. Right.
Or if you have a girlfriend or boyfriend, one of you is striving for marriage, the other one's not ready for marriage. So all of these things just kind of hitting you from all sides.
Yeah, and then if you're a male, I mean, if you're a female too, in that range, but if you're a male, your brain's not even fully developed yet, so you're still like developing and going through it. You're still finishing off puberty and finishing off these changes and things like that.
Because the brain fully develops at 25.
Right.
All right. I still think like the brain is fully developed at 25, but I think for guys, we need 5 more years to realize that it's fully developed. I was like, oh, this is as good as it's going to get.
The 90% develops to 25, but the frontal lobe is still finishing up its last little bit.
We haven't started using these other parts of our brains. It's brand new. We want to keep it pristine. We don't want to use that yet.
Right.
So, but yeah, I can see how that would cause a panic of a variety.
Yeah, and I think, I think now, like you said, we kind of just have developed maybe a new name for it or a new term. But like you had already mentioned, I think it's something that kind of everyone goes through.
Yeah. I think it's amplified by social media though, because, back in the early 1800s when I was going through it, you didn't get to see what everybody else is doing.
Well, right. Exactly. You only had your immediate community to compare yourself to, where now is I can look up just about anyone and make a comparison. Right. And there's a lot of people that post about what they're doing, whether they're lying or not, just to get clicks and views and things like that. And so I can see it all and make that comparison.
Oh, absolutely. And even like, you don't even have to lie. You create this image, this online image that's accurate, but it's glorified.
Right.
And so now people are looking at, that's just a regular person. Look how put together they are, but they're not showing the ugly stuff on the other side.
In the reality, they got 3 baby mamas, and they like
right.
They're
crying in their pillow every night.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You don't see the whole. You only see the picture that they give you. Right. So it's very hard to determine what's actually going on.
Because I've seen it with people. They're talking. You look at their Facebook page, you're like, oh, I'm so in love, blah, blah, blah. I was like, bro, you just about went to blows 20 minutes ago. What are you talking about? She was cheating on you last night.
Yeah.
And you're still talking about how much in love you are and, so glad to have found each other. It's like, it's a lie. It's a facade.
Right.
So you're in your quarter life crisis phase.
Crisis now.
Right? So you have plans for that?
So I feel like I guess if I had a quarter life crisis, I've kind of already, I feel like I've already went through that. I don't feel like I'm at a place in my life where I feel is lost, if you will, or still trying to figure out who I am or what I would like to do.
Let's go down the list. Let's see if you hit any of these things.
Okay.
Or if you're about to.
Okay.
All right. Purposelessness. Have you found your purpose?
I don't know if I feel like I found like, oh, this is what I'm just really meant to do. But I don't feel I lack purpose, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I feel like I have purpose in what I do now.
So you have a purpose. You haven't necessarily found the purpose.
Yeah, I don't know for sure if it's like the purpose, right? But I don't feel like I just have no purpose at all.
About identity crisis. You're questioning your identity, self-doubts, beliefs, goals, values.
No, not as much of that. I think I'm pretty solid, and I don't take it to the point of like, oh, I'll never learn anything again. Fuck you. I know everything about myself. But I feel pretty solid in who I am as a person.
Okay. And for you viewers at home, feel free to answer these questions as we go for yourself. Because
go down the list and find out you need a therapist.
if you're not going through a quarter life crisis, maybe by the time we get through that, you will
are.
be.
Yeah, you'll be.
But that's the goal here.
Yeah.
And then put it in the comments that you need a therapist, and we can refer you to people. Professional uncertainty. Yeah, professional uncertainty.
I did.
You did,
but it wasn't like about the career I was in. It was more so just trying to, I've been going for a specific role for a very long time, and I was trying to figure out if I was going to be in that role or not. So there was uncertainty there. But as far as like my overall career, I'm pretty certain about like the path that I want to go down. I have a feeling that might change soon though, because now I have new opportunities that I got to figure out where the hell I'm gonna go.
Yeah, but career where I'm like for uncertainty.
Yeah,
it's really about doubting the path that you chose.
Yeah, and I don't have any doubts about the path that I've gone on so far.
And then how about, this would be a great one since you are married, relationship stress.
I think there's new stresses in a relationship of like being married versus being single. But I don't find in my marriage that I'm particularly stressed about anything going on in my marriage. Like we have external stressors that we talk about all the time and deal with and all of that stuff. But I always look to my marriage as like, it's definitely more of a rock than it is like, oh, I get back there to like the core of our relationship and I'm like, oh shit, I don't know where this is going. Like this is another argument or fight or whatever the hell it's
so you're still at the I can't wait to get home stage as opposed to, man, I gotta go home stage.
Yeah, except I don't, and I'm sure lots of people have said this, right? So maybe I'm not a guru or any type of means in that way, but there is no reluctancy for me to see my wife or be around her. And there has not been that reluctancy yet in our relationship. And I don't, the way that we work through things, I hope and don't expect there to be at this point, at least right now. So,
all right. FOMO,
fear of missing out. I think I've struggled with this a little bit over the last few years when it comes to like, it's more about this whole like content creation journey that we went on. Because on social media, you obviously see all the people that are already blowing up on social media. You don't see the little people. You see them after they've gone through the struggle. So I feel like there was like those types of things or like this whole, I don't know, fucking Bitcoin thing or some shit. I've gotten over that these last couple of years. I have much less of that. And I'm just kind of like, I think 3 years ago, the old me would have like this Apple Vision Pro that just came out. I would have went out and bought it like right away for no good reason. And now I have, at this point in my life, I have no desire. I'm like, it's too expensive, not there yet. I can see all the red flags about it. And I'm like, I don't have that fear of missing out on it because they're Apple. They're just going to release it.
Right.
So if I want one at some point, I'll get there. So I don't think I struggle with that as much. I think I did a few years ago.
Indecision. So basically, you don't trust your intuition, gut feelings. You get choices and you're like, I don't know which one to do.
Yeah, I don't really have that problem. I don't know if I've ever really struggled with that though. I've always had a good like, if this is what my gut is telling me to do, that's what I'm doing.
isolation, feeling disconnected, and let's take away the traveling
The travel
aspect.
part. Yeah. Because I was gonna say, like, with the travel, that sucks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily feel disconnected, but it still sucks.
Right.
But I don't feel isolated. I mean, I've got, you, unfortunately.
I know.
I've got.
I keep you grounded, like in detention kind of grounded.
Yeah. No, I don't feel isolated from people or my environment, whatsoever.
And then this last one. All right. And I find it interesting for a quarter life crisis, but languishing, like your life is empty and stagnant.
Well, I don't feel that way. I could see how others would. I don't feel that way currently, but my job where I live, what I've been doing has been changing so much over the last 5 years. I don't know if I could feel that way. I think I'd actually prefer a little stagnant over.
I wish I could languish for a little while.
Yeah. So no, I don't feel that way, but that's just because of the job that we are in kind of causes a lot of commotion and just sitting in one place. So I don't feel that way. But I think that could cause an opposite problem of not feeling like you're ever grounded.
Which might be something that I struggle with because my whole life has been moving every 3 years.
Right.
And so people are like, I want to get roots. I want to be grounded. I want to stay in one spot. I'm like, I don't know how.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's going to be a kind of on this next step, that'll be kind of establishing that for me, and it will be new. It's been a while since I've been in that place. So I think it'll be like that 3-year period where I got to figure out how I'm not like losing my mind. And
it took me a while just to stay in a career path for 3 years. I mean, high school, then I went retail, then I went Army, then I went college, then I went Navy. And I had this whole life journey before I got on a career path.
Yeah, I think I'm good there. It's just now figuring out the grounded, like at home part that I have to figure out.
So to me, the word languishing is interesting because it's like honestly, your life is just beginning at 25.
Yeah.
You have the whole world ahead of you. You can still do the things that you want to do. So there's no reason to feel stagnant.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's kind of a weird place to feel at that age too, because at that age, from 16 to 30, your life is also constantly changing. I mean, you go from high school to whatever it is you're doing, whether it's college or not.
Your
relationships are changing. You're moving around, blah, 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 whatever. So it's an interesting feeling to feel like you're not doing anything. Maybe you don't feel like you're not moving forward and like you're going backward, but you're still moving. You're definitely not stagnant.
Right.
And like you said, I mean, most people typically live to at least 80. So like you're not very far into your life that I think you need to feel like you're stagnant.
I think maybe with like your generation, there is an excess need for validation before you can do something. It's like, oh, I'm not a car mechanic, so I can't open the hood of my car. I have to get somebody else to do it, to look at the engine. I'm not a mechanic, so I can't change the oil. I have to go and learn to change the oil and have someone give me a piece of paper that says I know how to change the oil before I change the oil. And so I think your generation has this habit of creating walls that don't really exist, and they just stop at that wall and they look at the problems and not just like they screw the problems and just go for it. I mean, because you can figure things out. Just be curious and obstinate.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other part of that is that I think the part that plays into that is and maybe this plays into that whole thing, but being afraid of the failure, I think, is what stops most individuals from taking that step.
I think a lot of it also is probably like my generation's fault. because we overcompensate, right? Because we were the latchkey kids and unprotected. We went out there, we're playing smash up derby on our bicycles while not wearing helmets. Like, how do we win this game? You got to be the last one with the bike. Yeah, we're just going to try to run each other over in our bikes, right? So it's stuff like that. And so we're like, well, in hindsight, maybe some of these ideas weren't so good, Like Timmy, he's lost a hand because of one of our games, type of thing.
Right.
And so now we've protected you from all of these things, and your childhood was too protected. And then when you get out of that and more into the world, you haven't had to experience it and develop your coping mechanisms.
Yeah, and then some of the things also change, like the car mechanic thing, right? Some things have definitely changed technology-wise that make it much more difficult to even if you're a parent that gave your kid a new car, and so you're my age receiving that car or closer to you, the oil change might be the only thing that you can actually do without the car's computer yelling at you and saying, I can't do this anymore, right? There are some things that have become like, you have to have X, Y, and Z equipment or certification or validation to even do. And that's becoming much more common, like with requirements to, you need this to...
But I'm still an advocate to just go in there and breaking shit.
Yeah, that works great if you have extra shit and it's not the only way to get you from where you need to go.
The more life sucks for you when you're younger, the stronger you'll be for when you have the opportunities.
Sure.
So, but yeah, the car thing with the technology,
I'm not saying that's an excuse,
just
for
like
sure.
Technology is not intuitive.
Yeah.
Right. Taking a tire off, you see lug nuts and that kind of stuff. You're like, I think if I just took these things off, I can do this. And there's a curiosity that can get to it. And you got to have I don't recommend the curiosity on the $50,000 piece of equipment.
Yeah.
But curiosity on something that costs $100, I think it's a worthwhile curiosity, even if you end up destroying that object.
Yeah.
What's on the inside of a wooden bat? And you cut a bat in half. Oh, it's just more wood.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, I just don't think your generation does that as much. And I think there's technology issues with that. I mean, because you're looking at handheld gaming devices and that kind of stuff that's taking up more and more. The phones. I'm not encouraging people to take their $1,000 phone apart to see how it works. Take your neighbor's $1,000 phone apart. That's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get it. But don't fear failure.
Yeah.
Be daring. Be bold. What's that phrase? Is like luck favors the bold.
I don't know. Sure.
So, the last part on the quarter life crisis, there's the two types of locked in and locked out. Right? Since we've concluded that you have yet to enter your quarter life crisis.
No, I think I've gone through it. I'm sticking with I've already, because all of those things that we listed, I have felt strongly at some point.
When I was 8 years old.
No, like probably within the last, probably, I think it was more so like when I started college.
Okay.
I think when I started college to when I moved for my career to start my job. And probably like 6 months into that, because things were really all over the place. I moved halfway across the country, basically like broken relationships, some things like that. And there was like a lot of those changes. And I felt really depressed in like those 6 months when I first moved out. And those 6 months is probably when I felt like if I had to call it something, that would have been like my quarter life crisis. Like, what the fuck am I doing? Whatever.
I would buy the quarter life crisis from like 16 to 25 easily, more so than this, mid 20s to mid 30s thing. Because honestly, 35 years old is the start of the midlife crisis. So are you just going to go to quarter life straight into the midlife?
It's my whole life's a crisis, really. Yeah.
It's like, well, you know, if it's the attention-seeking generation, then yeah, I guess you're going to
I'm always in a crisis.
You're going to search for the crisis, always looking for ways of being a victim, so nothing's ever your fault, and people are always feeling bad.
Exactly. Now you're catching on.
Okay. But there's the locked-in version of your quarter life crisis and the locked out. Right? So the locked in is like you're in a place and you're trapped.
Mm-hmm.
You're obligated. You're not allowed to leave. Mm-hmm. And if you try to leave, nobody's going to let you do crabs in a bucket type of thing. Mm-hmm. Right. And then there's a locked out where you're trying to get into something and nobody will let you in.
Nobody will let you in. Yeah, I do know what that feels like.
The locked out, or
the locked out. I'm like, I'm just trying. Let me in.
I just want to do this. I feel like that right now. It's like, because I'm underutilized. It's like, just give me something to do.
Right. Yeah. But I think the difference of at least of the locked out scenario, there's a difference between you feel like you're locked out of this opportunity, but you give up or you're not trying for it, and then. Or you just expect that opportunity is supposed to land in your lap, but you haven't hit it yet, and you're like, well, why not? It's mine. It's supposed to be given to me. Versus you actually going for that opportunity regardless of you still feeling locked out. And then I think people get caught up in like it's been 2 months and it hasn't happened. Why? It's like, well, how long have you actually been trying? Like 2 months is really not that long. You know, versus I've been trying for this for multiple years, and then maybe it's time to reevaluate. Well, maybe that's not the right decision. You know, how many years have you been going for this? How many years have you been trying? There's people that spend their whole life in dead-end careers. So you obviously haven't been trying that long if it's only been a couple years.
Right.
So it's just, you know, I think it's a matter of how long have you actually been going for this thing?
Yeah.
And I think the locked in thing is kind of all about being creative. I think people feel stuck, and it's just kind of a lack of thought into how they become unstuck.
I think there's fear.
Yeah. I mean, there's other drivers to that.
I think there's laziness.
Yeah.
You know, everybody wants $1 million, but Junior won't even go buy the scratch-off ticket, you know? So good luck. Want somebody to deliver.
Laziness definitely plays a part. There are very few people that are actually multimillionaires from just laziness.
Right.
And it's usually their offspring or their offspring's offspring, not them, and the person that created all of that wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I post this in different places and I get pushback every once in a while, but it's one of those, I don't know any 6-digit wage earners that work only 40 hours a week. 40 hours a week, that's baseline. If you want to get to the 6 digits, at least at some point in your life, you're going to have to put in more than 40 to get to.
Yeah, I think you, at some point, did do that work. You may not do it now anymore. Mm-hmm. You may have reached a stage in your like career or whatever it is, the money making that you're doing, that you don't have to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. But at some point, you definitely did. Because I can say for certain that I definitely have multiple times to get to the point to where
I was working 100-hour weeks for a while. So.
Yeah, I definitely have. So I think that's there's definitely some truth to that statement.
So quarter life crisis, I think you did really well. All right, because I compare it.
Test.
No, I compare it to mine, and we had very different lives, right? But I think you're much better put together at your age than I was at your age.
Well, thank you. I'm just all going to fall apart next year. I'm going to realize that I never actually had it.
So like when I think about my 17 to 25-year-old range, I was lost. There's a time of depression and that kind of stuff. And, you know, I think at least Gen X males, when we are in bad places, we seek our own destruction. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. And that's why I joined the Army at the start of a war. It's like, all right, send me out to the desert type of thing, you know? It didn't work. Here I am still.
Shit, I tried.
But at the same time, you know, I think those rough times helped me so much for
Yeah,
later.
they made you who you are. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say that I went through like a war or anything like
Right.
that, but there were definitely some things that came up throughout my life and throughout college, especially some harder things that like set me on the path that I am now.
Mhm.
There are very key moments that I can think about and very vividly remember that put me exactly like where I am. It's like those butterfly effect moments
Yeah.
where like if you do one thing or do the other, like completely changes the course of history. There are definitely those moments that I think back now and I'm like, well, thank God that happened.
Yeah.
Thank God it was so bad that happened that I'm like, I'm where I'm at because I never would be.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely important to like go through those things. But I think it's also important to strive to get out of them and not just sit in those things. Like you said, you can't sit in your life crisis forever.
So, we covered quarter life crisis. Maybe on a next episode or a future episode, we'll cover the midlife crisis. We could talk about how I handled mine,
Yeah.
and what you can expect
Yeah.
in your future.
Yeah, we could talk about my future. That sounds good.
So, did we tell people to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell yet?
You just did.
All right. At the end of the podcast, we're going to tell you that. But, honestly, I hope this was interesting because quarter life crisis is brand new to me.
Yeah, it's new to me.
So hopefully people got something out of this. And, if you
Just find out you're in one.
me, nah,
No, not you.
oh yeah. Did you find out you're in a quarter life crisis? Put in the comments. We'll refer you to some help.
Yeah.
If you think it's a bunch of hooey, put that in there too. Tell us it's a bunch of hooey. Tell us why it's a bunch of hooey. Because to a certain degree, I say the quarter life crisis is a bunch of hooey simply because it's always existed. So coming up with this new name and trying to make it like it's brand new and nobody's ever done it before, I think that part is hooey. But I think what people, it's transition, it's change, it's all these things all at once, and you're not that far out of adolescence when it happens, or you might still be in it. So I think it's very legitimate. And I also can see where us Gen Xers can mock the shit out of Gen Zers for being soft or something like this, even though they went through it.
Yeah.
We went through it ourselves.
Well, and even though you maybe had just 10 years ago went through it and like you're like, oh, that's stupid, as you get into your Corvette that you could never afford and like trying to pick up these really young girls and all of that stuff and whatever, and you're like, well, okay, you're still in it. Yeah,
that's
just a different thing. I know. Of course it is, right?
But I love it though, because that was, I used that stereotype as an example when I was talking about my midlife crisis.
Right. Yeah, and so I'm sure we'll get to that in the future episode. But alrighty, well, thank you guys for watching.
Peace be the journey.